Welcome back to the Lynx Golf Podcast. I'm Al Lunsford, digital editor for Lynx, joined by my co-host, Joe Passoff. Today, we're delighted to be joined by two members of the Dye Designs group, including the founder and her son, and that's Cynthia Dye McGarey and Matt McGarey. Thank you guys for joining us. I know that you've designed, great to have you. I know you've designed courses in some, I think I read somewhere 27 countries and maybe more now at this point. So I asked you where you were joining from, and it turns out you're just still at home in Denver, Colorado today. But thank you again for
recently
being here. Oh, recently? You recently just moved to Denver?
No, I just recently returned to Denver.
Oh, okay. Let's start there. So where did you return from?
Saudi Arabia.
And what is going on out there?
I've been building a golf course in Saudi for the last 4 years.
That I looked down the list of where you guys are at, from Azerbaijan to Iraq, the first golf course being built there. I just went and played your renovation work at Fripp Island in South Carolina, and I know you have original designs in Washington and Portugal. I mean, you guys are all over the map. So let's start at the beginning with you two. If you could kind of just introduce yourself and how Dye Designs Group began. Obviously, people listening to this podcast and who may have heard of you guys already know your family tree and your history in the golf architecture business. But maybe, Cynthia, how did you get your start?
Well, I started with my family, as well as Matt started with the family. But yeah, I started it at a very early age. My dad, when I was about 12, opened up the first Dye Dye office in my hometown, which is Urbana, Ohio, where the first Dye golf course is. And I think it's now 103 years old, that my grandfather designed, and my dad and Uncle Pete, they grew up taking care of that golf course, and that's where they learned to play. So go ahead. Yeah.
I read somewhere, you're one of 8 children, as you told us before we started recording, that growing up, you weren't sure if this was the right business for you. And I read a quote from Matt, too, who said, all the golf courses will be built by the time I grow up and decide what I want to do. So how did you both ultimately decide that this was your career path?
I think that was like a 9th grade quote.
I worked with my family for many years. So I traveled the globe with my cousin Perry Dye, working in golf courses. And then I was given the opportunity to be the design manager and the project manager for my uncle on 2 courses in the United States, one being the Wolf at the Paiute, and the other one, the Promontory in Utah. And that was actually those are my first 2 jobs that I got to do kind of basically solo, under my Uncle Pete and Perry's watch, that, they came in, but I was there on a daily basis. As the kids can tell you, I'd leave on Monday and I'd be back on Friday. So, and during that time on the Promontory, I was asked to do my own golf course, and that was Whitehorse in Seattle. So that was my first solo project all by myself, and therefore I ended up opening my own design firm.
Mm-hmm. And Matt.
And Matt, and before we continue, and Matt, we'll hear from you. Cynthia, again, your father was Roy Dye.
Yes.
And then Uncle Pete. Who was the older, Roy or Pete?
Roy. I mean, not Roy. Pete. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. And how close in age were they?
I think they're 4 years apart.
Okay.
My dad was baby. They had the oldest was a sister, another Ann Dye, and my dad was the youngest.
All right. Now that we got that straight, and going into the family business with both dad and uncle, Matt, continuing the family business, where did you start in all of this?
I guess at a young age, spring break with my Uncle Matt doing some greens. That was at Ocean Trails. I don't know the name of the course now. And Palos Verdes,
It's Trump National.
Trump National. So I'd go out there spring breaks and just always around working. And then my real first job was out of college. Went to Spain and was on the crew learning with Butch Lepore there at San Roque Club, doing the San Roque Club 2. So doing drainage, hand picking drainage, learning drainage is where you always start. Then up to greens floating, raking out the gravel layer, and just really in the construction side of it. And then came back home, tried some other things, tried not to get into it. I was never good in the office. I'm sure people would attest. A little antsy for office work. And then went to Nassau Country Club, and then Pound Ridge, and then to Turkey. And from there, I was really in the construction side, and fell in love with shaping and building golf courses, and traveled from there, in and out of the office, design work, but really just in field shaping. Yeah.
No, I'm, it's, I wondered if there was that turning point where you just said, I want to do this. I want to do this like as long as I can kind of thing, because you had tried a couple of different, maybe this or maybe that.
I tried a little real estate.
Real estate, Jacksonville.
Tried this, that. And,
all right.
Golf just sucks you back in, and getting the opportunity that they gave us to go to some amazing places, and just building in the dirt, meeting some great shapers, and kind of just all of a sudden you blink and 15 years later.
and here you are with pretty hefty flights across the planet to do your construction jobs. What else, Al? What direction are we headed next?
Well, at this point, you guys are well experienced, and obviously it's in your DNA. There's no denying that. How do you think your design philosophy these days maybe has changed from when you were first, learning the craft, and what are your key tenets today with your firm?
Well, I always say it's in our blood, the way we look at a golf course, look at a topo map or a piece of land. She teaches me about routing a golf course every day. I try to push it a little bit and get pulled back, and why this won't work, why that won't work. But we always say it's really finding the routing, finding where the golf holes fit, is our main principle. And then playability and design angles. That's always been a key aspect of die golf, is the tricky angles, but still have approaches and make it approachable and fair for the everyday player and fun, while also challenging for the lower handicap or pros. So we take a lot of that into our routing and figuring out what our strategy plan is going to be from there.
I grew up playing tennis, not golf. So, and then I worked in the office with my dad starting at a young age, and he liked models. So I learned how to do topo maps, building the models, me and my sister, out of cardboard. He loved to have the whole thing. So I guess I look at it as, looking at every piece of property is very unique. And then a lot of, manufactured golf courses we built in Las Vegas, trying to be creative, like you would actually been given the topography is always a bigger challenge actually than being given a natural site. I think my dad and my uncle play fast, keep it going. So, I always look at it, and my uncle would say to me, well, how are you going to get there? So I'm always thinking about myself and the average player, and I play with average players, and I can read a golf course. So I'm always helping them how to how do you set up? How do they read it? They, for an average player, they're just hitting it out there. How to teach them, or how to set up a golf course that you can actually play. And I always, like my uncle, there's a bailout. I always say, if you can't make that shot, don't try it.
I get that a lot when I play something out. Well, how am I going to get there?
Yeah. Not everyone designing golf courses is a scratch handicap, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you find it harder to build something that's hard to play, or something that gives more options to people? Like, is it more of a discovery and finding the way that yourself or the average player could get there, as you said, or as Pete told you?
I think that's the trick in it, is to balance the handicaps and the groups of people that go out. You'll have 15, you might have a 25 handicap and a single digit. And how do we make it enjoyable for both of them and challenging? I think to me, that's the big trick in it, is how to bring this together and bring those handicaps equal. And
Cynthia, I've read that you said that seeing your ideas on paper develop into the actual golf course is one of your most gratifying experiences and what you do. And elsewhere, I think maybe it was when you were building West Cliffs, you guys were actually on the beach in the sand, using your fingers to build golf holes and taking pictures and then taking it over to the course. How do you get from point A there, where it's just something on a piece of paper or in the sand or in the dirt, to the actual physical final product?
Well, it's interesting you bring up West Cliffs, because when I first went to West Cliffs, it was totally pine tree forest. You couldn't see. I mean, you get 10 feet in and you wouldn't know where you were. You'd lose somebody. It was all, we'd have to follow the ATV trails that went up through the dunes. So uncovering that piece of property, which didn't happen for 10 years before the government actually let them cut the trees. And the reason they finally let them cut the trees is because they have a moth and they're dying. So all of a sudden, take the trees down. So, and, envisioning that golf course, we never thought we'd have ocean views, because we always were going to have these trees. So all of a sudden, it's like every hole has an ocean view. But we had to have the same routing, because if you change the routing, you'd have to go all the way back to the beginning. And this is, 10 years later. So you would lose your permits. So it actually surprisingly worked out very well.
Well, it is ranked either as Portugal's best course or certainly in the top 3 since it opened and in the years since. When you saw that piece of property and were finally able to see the forest through the trees, I know people think of Portugal as beaches and mountains and so forth, but there you were. Did it dawn on you both, we may really have something special here, and to lay down the best design we can do, we think it can be one of the best in Europe? Do you dare dream or think that way?
Absolutely. Everything should be the best. That's why you get hired, is to build the best product you can. They're particularly visiting 2012 when I did the first time, going out there and just seeing the cliffs and how close you were to the actual ocean, seeing the property rise up from those cliffs to planed out and then raising up the hill, and just all sand was just magical. I couldn't wait to get there.
My instructions to the first guy on site, I said, you're not shaping. All you are is smoothing out the ground. Do not touch anything. Make sure, just clean it up. And, after cleaning out all the trees and the stumps and filling in the holes, just clean it up. I want to, make sure we get every bit of what's there into the strategy of the golf course, which was so much. I mean, that was so much fun.
It was unique. It was also a major development. So keeping the big earth movers away from protected areas They don't really care. I would be roping off, caution taping, going to the local store, finding more, and just roping off everywhere to keep these guys, battling them to not disturb what's there. It was unique.
Yeah, they had the original contractor they had come in was not a golf course contractor. They were from the development side. So they were putting in the roads and the pods for the houses. So they adopted them to come in, and we don't really have cart paths. It's all going to be done in the native, and they bring a road grader in. And I get this call, they're going to ruin your golf course. They've got a road grader out there. So, that's one of the challenges in different, the way they structure construction in different parts of the world, and how many different contractors, the experience of the contractors that they have.
Yeah, I think going back to your point, did we expect that to be what it is? I think absolutely. And I mean, she spent years going over there. Great friends, the original owner, spending time at their place. And my dad would be hanging out, and she would disappear and come back, 14 hours later, out there hiking around. She knew it was special. I knew it was special the first time I went there, and then just couldn't wait to get back there. Finally got back to Shape with Shape or Dale Menning, and then my cousin Fraser Dye, he was on that site with me. And just the town and where it was, it's surfing capital of Portugal right there, and it's just a great place. It's one of my favorite places on earth.
Well, I know that
something special.
Yeah, a couple of high-profile new courses have just been built in Portugal over the last couple of years. One or two more on tap. So I think more and more people, the folks that like to travel and see great golf courses, are going to either rediscover Portugal or see it for the first time. And West Cliffs will certainly have to be on any of those itineraries. Al, I know
in the course there. Right? Yeah, I want to play that one.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Al, I know we want to talk about a number of different golf courses, but for the architecture buffs out there, I do want to go back just briefly in the history and influence on you, Cynthia, and what you certainly passed to Matt. Your dad, Roy, obviously doesn't get the credit that your Uncle Pete did, but he was a very good designer in his own right, and worked with Pete on collaborations, and also did his own solo designs. I happen to be one of the only people in Scottsdale left at my age that played the Gamble golf links. That existed for about a year or so, and then it just didn't work out. And then Desert Mountain came along, and that's where the Renegades course sits today. But okay, what I wanted to know was, in what way did your dad, Roy, differ from your Uncle Pete's design philosophy, or what ways were they similar, and what did you take from each of them?
Well, you have to understand the timing of Dad's career back then, and it wasn't the dollars spent, or we're not near to some of the golf courses that Pete was able to build, and is later in his career. And so I think most of Dad's golf courses, as you said, Gamble golf links, that Dad, he had optioned that whole 9,000 acre parcel. He was in control over it, and then the economy busted, and his health was also failing, so he was forced to sell it to Lyle Anderson, and it became Desert Mountain. So I think a lot of it had to be Dad's was limited to more economy driven. I can remember when I was growing up, there were 11 golf courses built in the United States, and we've had that downturn in our lifetime. And I'm like, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
You're lucky you can turn on your electricity, making a career out of golf course architecture. It wasn't a very, luxurious career at that time. I mean, you had other golf pros like Jack Nicklaus coming along. He did Harbortown with Uncle Pete, And, but he had the brand behind to sustain himself. So.
Sure. So as between your dad and Uncle Pete, how do they differ? How are they the same? And what did you take from them?
Well, Dad liked development. And my uncle only wanted to do the golf course. He wanted to run the whole show. Not, as you could say, the 9,000 acres that he master planned at Desert Mountain. Also, Mummy Mountain was his introduction to that because they sold that property. He and Uncle Pete. Uncle Pete said the check went in one hand and it went out the other into option the Carefree Ranch. So Uncle Pete never wanted to be in the development, but Dad did. So we spent a lot of our childhood, and he'd travel all over around the world. I mean, there's be a community in France he liked, and we would, he just loved the master planning part of the golf.
Joe, I think somebody needs to do for them like a world map, like matrix, where everyone in the family, you can see like they contributed on this design and built and all over the map. I think that would look great on your wall at home. It would probably take a lot of work, but I think that would be a really cool thing.
Then you could share with us.
Yeah, exactly. So going back to West Cliffs, and when you get there and there's all these trees, and Joe, I mean, I know you've seen it. This is one of the more fascinating things that I've gotten to do with this job is to go and see a site in development where maybe a few holes have been cut out or not even, where you're just looking at a bare site and there's a vision, and then you go back a couple of years later and all of a sudden it's there. I mean, it's quite incredible, and it's really impressive what you guys are able to envision and ultimately plan out. I recently got to go and play Ocean Point at Fripp Island, which we've talked about. And Matt and I had a great conversation before I went there. He gave me some tips on how I should approach my trip there. I think it's one of the most underrated golf resorts in the country, and really, really great now after the work you guys did there. So going to a place instead of a blank canvas where you do everything on your own, going to a place where something's already established. They had a George Cobb course there, and then putting your own touches on it in a renovation. How did you approach your work at Fripp Island, and what went into the decisions you made? I know there was a lot of waste area added, bunkers here and there moved around. So what went into some of your thoughts and decisions at Fripp?
They wanted a bunker renovation. Also talked about originally doing a greens renovation on that. So doing some research into some of Cobb's designs. Great contractor down there, Jay Morris. He had some old plans that kind of looking at his and how we were going to pay ode to George Cobb, plus revamp it. And then going out there and meeting with Joe Guerra and the team out there, what they want out of the course and what do they want back from it. Came up with the ultimate plan of making it more beach vibe-y, which is incorporating a lot of the waste area. It was a lot of maintenance with that grass, wall-to-wall grass. So we came up with the approach to incorporate all the waste area, really coming off of 18 through 10 and then 11 and bringing that beach all the way through the golf course. So that was number one. Then playing account for the membership that's there, the people that play there regularly, big group of retired folks that like fair, like fun golf course. So with the design aspect and the carries and avenues to play the course, that's where we laid in a lot of our waste bunkers. Then with the actual formal bunkers around the greens, the different styles we were coming up with, a lot of it had to do with, with maintenance, the maintenance crew, what they can take a triplex right over the top. So we weren't going to roll down any faces, minimize our hand labor, trimming and all that. And then how deep these bunkers should be and the flashing on these bunkers to withstand the weather. that all played factor into how we came up with the ultimate design that we came up with. Which, if you look at it a little bit, it'd be a lot different than a die course that you typically see a die course, which would be, pot bunkers or rolled down grass faces. But if you look at courses Kiowa, it has both in there, and so we just kind of went with it and did. I was on site shaping and lining up our shaper Sam there, the style that we wanted, and molded a little bit, did a couple test bunkers, and then ultimately came up with a little back and forth, a lot of pictures back and forth, and then being able to work with those guys and come up with what we did was an awesome experience. And that whole team out there at Fripp with John and Mr. Frost and Joe Guerra and his brother, it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, Joe, you and I talked before I went, and that was kind of, you had seen what it was before, and it was like a beach course that you didn't really feel like it was at the beach. And so, and Matt and I, we talked about that too, and now it feels like mission accomplished. And you built some new dunes on a couple of the holes, and the native waste really is a good addition and an incredible compliment to the other course. I really feel like it's as good of a 1-2 punch in the low country that a resort golfer can go and venture out and see. It's kind of like Kiowa Island light in a way.
Yeah, we're hoping that, it's an ongoing process. They're developing the island and revamping it. They're doing a putting course there, and then I was actually talking with Scott Sherman and Mark Love yesterday, so they're circling back around to do some updates on their course. Really great island and great ownership. I think they have the vision to bring it to what it should be. I mean, you're flanked by Hilton Head and Kiowa, sitting right there, and then Beaufort, you have great golf courses there. So, I mean, what they're doing with the island, and in the future, there's going to be some more tweaks and some more works going on there.
So I've got a question, Matt, along those lines. You, when the press release came out, when it reopened, you said something that had a nice tone of political correctness, which I liked, and I wanted to ask you about it, because you said, we enjoyed partnering with the Fripp Island Resort to bring about a more modern playing experience that capitalizes on the unique low country elements, all with an eye toward the intent of Mr. Cobb's original design. Mm-hmm. So how does it work with the balancing act? Oh, mom's proud. How does it work with the balancing act of what you really see, with what the client wants, and saying, how much should we keep? How much should we respect? It's not a golf course that's hosted major championships or, something like that. So does it come down to budget? Does it come down to somebody says something, we want to keep the bones, but we want to do this? How does the interplay work between you and the client?
Well, budget was square footage with a project like that, materials. With that, the ownership is very familiar and seasoned in golf and golf ownership, and they know what they want. And having the legacy of a George Cobb course is very important. That's why we ultimately didn't touch a lot of the greens. We extended 2 of them. And then with some of his bunkering work and some of his plans, I don't know how some of the courses got built back in the day. If you look at, what's the one in Hilton Head that Cobb did, Port Royal? It's different than some of the plans. Sea Palms, I saw some plans of that. There was a lot of undulation and noses and cool work within these bunkers that ultimately either were erased or didn't get built the way the plans were. So taking some of the inspiration on how some of his drawings were, we went with that kind of look. We couldn't see the actual sketches of it, but it's very important to keep, when you remodel courses with the legacy like that, to always respect the previous architect, in my opinion. and with the ownership and with the contractor too. He supplied a lot of these documents that we wanted to go off of. But then getting around to not going so extreme with it for maintenance reasons. That's why we went with what we did. We'd still affect the great look,
Speaking of legacies, you mentioned I made a comment earlier about some of those typical Dye things, some of the trademarks of Pete's, like the railroad ties or the pot bunkers, and I know you guys have incorporated island greens into some of the courses that you've done. Do you have a favorite island green either that you've done or you've seen that's not the 17th at TPC Sawgrass?
I've never done one. Well, we're remodeling one right now in Korea. It's large, so it has a bunker all around it with nice undulation and a couple noses, several walk downs throughout the bunker. That's the only one I've ever done. I guess that's my favorite one.
I've worked on several island greens, and it's not usually something I put into my design. I'm requested to put in my design.
Yeah.
and because that's everybody, let's Dye,
Mm-hmm.
you have to put an island green in, and none of them are ever as small as TPC Sawgrass. They're all, in Japan, I remember with Perry, they're landscaped islands, with a green in it. The one in Korea is large.
It's 14,000 square feet with 6,800 green.
We're like, it's too big. It's too big. They think it's going to make it easier, but then you have to put it too. So typically they are a lot larger. I did one in. I can't say I have a favorite. They're all, it's hard to make them different. But they seem to all come out very, very different. Iraq has one, but it's not the largest, but it's actually big because that's a new golfing, whole new golfing group that never, who knows who's going to play golf there. A lot of military, I would suppose, and so I really think it's hard to make, I always think it's more challenging to make them different. But I find them interesting.
What are the challenges of building a golf course in Iraq? You're the first to do it. Is it, freeing because there's no other courses there? So it's automatically going to be the best course that they'll play in the country. But
probably not for long.
Do you think it's, a challenge to try to deliver something that, maybe that a lot of people will be new to the game when they first play?
All right, wait, Cynthia, I'm going to let you answer that, but I also have to ask alongside,
Maybe I'm stealing
I talked to you
question.
about this in 2021. We were in Cleveland for the society meeting and we were at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's not just building a golf course in Iraq. And I want you to answer Al's question about that. It's being a woman in Iraq and leading the project. So tell us about both.
There was another woman that was a lead on that too, right? In the development?
She's in the development side. Yeah. The most, being a woman, I don't know, I guess I'm oblivious to it all. I don't know. I work anywhere in the world, I'm working with a predominantly male business. So I just I maybe put on blinders and I know I'm confident with what I do. So I just go out and do it. So nobody really questions me that on my ability. They hired me for a reason because they know I can do the work. I've worked with that particular client. I've worked with his relatives before. That was in Dreamland in Azerbaijan. So that was all positive experience. So even in Iraq, it was very positive. Everybody was very welcoming to me as far as being a woman. So the challenge in Iraq was that in the middle of the project, COVID hit. And that was a challenge. That's my first introduction to having to use, video and trying to walk around. And obviously this is in that kind of dirt, it's very reflective. It's hard to see anything. And I'm like, that was a challenge. So that was.
We actually had a Scottish Shaper there that stayed the whole time.
Yeah,
he chose not to come home.
He didn't choose.
I thought he was either leave and don't come back or
no.
stay.
He got stuck in the country for 6 months or more than that during COVID. So we'd had it rough graded, so that was a good thing. I've already actually implemented the most of the design, but finishing the greens and all that kind of thing that happened during COVID.
And what type of golf course did it wind up being? I think to Al's point, is that you make a statement period, or you say this is the first course in Iraq. There can't be too many golfers that, yeah.
I've been back for a press conference, since then, and the management, they're Brits, they all really love it. So, and all the expats or the people that came to, and we had officials from all over the Middle East, Egypt to Qatar, at this press conference, and they were all very excited about it. I would say that it's a big golf course. It's a big area. I'd like to see more landscaping in the future. It's just building framing it in, because it is a real estate development also with mega houses on it. So you need the landscaping to buffer it. Right now, it just but it's very playable, but challenging. It's a big golf course.
And was it difficult in any sense in terms of getting materials to the site, or border restrictions, any of the plants that you didn't specify?
The contractor was from Turkey, and it's very close, so everything comes from Turkey. So they didn't.
A system there?
Yeah, it was an irrigation. So as far as supplies, they had pretty much all the materials before they closed the borders.
Al, I got to say, I'm very impressed that Dye Designs Group was able to sail through Iraq and building a championship golf course there with only COVID. Really, that was the issue. So well done on that front.
They actually have I can't remember what's the Middle Eastern tournament that's going to be held there next year. IMG manages it, and
right.
They do an excellent job. So they've got tournaments lined up on it. So,
awesome. Well, another tournament golf course that you and Matt, you and Cynthia are involved with, just showed up in the news recently, which is in Seoul, South Korea, and Wujong Hills. And of course, that is the site, the venue for the Cologne Korean Open, Korea Open with no N. Some great winners over the years, including Ricky Fowler, Vijay Singh, John Daly, I think. Al, you may have that in front of you, but some tremendous champions and an important national event. How do you do design work or redesign, renovation work, knowing, well, the best in the game are going to play here at some point? How do we make sure they're properly tested in addition to serving a membership?
Revamping those greens. They had some settling, some unputtable areas, some tricky, weird things. The RNA is also involved with that tournament, getting some of their feedback while they were there, and just doing. You have the client who likes their way also, so kind of melding that with ours and just coming up with a pretty good set of plans to hand over to the two shapers that are there. We were able to have two really great shapers that over there, and they're actually finishing next week with that process. So it's get the greens and have the guys, and if you're overseas like that, having I call them the paintbrushes. I'm shaper friendly. That's me. That's what I love to do. So getting the best guys to build your product is really what it's about. So yeah, Woody and Alfredo. Alfredo, he's over there. He started working for Pete when he was 14. And worked all through all of his courses, French lick, and really knows how to build some great greens. And then his feedback with adjusting some of our green details with what's actually there and how far we can disturb out. I think we are going to have a great product.
And the original intent was to revamp all 18 greens in the practice green and a couple, add a few bunkers here and there, but or delete them, and in 2 months, so they could reopen for the Korean Open. Now that's not going to happen because they realize that zoysia grass isn't going to green up for the Korean Open year. They had a fallback day on another golf course, so this year will be played at a different golf course, but it was a 2-month. Let's get it done. And they have, they have an incredible construction group that's there. That's just right on. You finish and they're right behind you. So it's gone real well. Matt and I have tag team going over there. We've been pretty consistent of going there every couple of weeks, and Matt's on his way there on this weekend. And he'll jump on the Sand Pro.
And that was a course originally designed by your cousin Perry.
Yes.
And do you guys feel differently when you do work on a family golf course versus, say, what you did at Fripp?
Oh, yeah. I actually went to that golf course with Perry when it was first constructed. So I was the landscaper.
I mean, it hits home pretty heavy, and with Perry not being here, take tremendous amount of pride in doing that work.
I've got one more, and would love to talk about what you have currently in the works or maybe coming up too. But one thing you said in talking about the design in Korea was that you're doing the greens and also the practice green. And another quote I read from you that was about how driving ranges and practice facilities are a great way for you to showcase your work. Why is that? Is that just somewhere that you can kind of experiment with new things, or just, what makes doing the practice facilities a good way to showcase what you could do?
I love it. You can push the envelope, try new things, different things, and you're constricted in space and usability. And a lot of people might use the practice facilities more. Come after work, putt around, come after dinner, putt around, chip around, and then that's where you're spending most of your time practicing. But as far as design and building, I for some reason I like doing the driving ranges, and doing unique driving ranges is fun, and the chipping practice facilities, short courses, those are a challenge, and that's why I like them, and they're fun.
And in Iraq, I have a 6-hole golf course, and that they don't even know about it. When the shaper, I'm like, okay, now put a tee here, put a flat area here. So I figure, you're going to have youth coming out there. But you would have told the client that's what I'm doing. Oh, they wouldn't. No. It's just a driving range. We'll build something. No, driving ranges are perfect, especially when you're limited on space to do some creative work.
Secret short course. I love that.
Yeah.
Matt, did you have a unique example, Matt, of one that you pushed the envelope at?
No, not one that I could think of. A challenging one when I was shaping, working with Mark Aramore and Total Turf under Jim Lipe, his design at Castle Pines Golf Club, and cutting all that dirt down and how to put in the 2 greens with that new driving range and getting the usable space with the distance out of it. That was a challenge.
Joe, unless you have anything else, love for them to talk about what they got going on right now.
Yeah, this actually will transition right into that. the first solo design you mentioned was Whitehorse in near Seattle.
Yeah, it's in Kingston. It's across the bay from Seattle.
Okay, I remember
on the
one.
Olympic. It's on the Olympic Peninsula.
Okay, I mean, I remember in the day, this maybe 2007, won one of those best new course awards, and I also remember it, you know, in tournament play, qualifying and so forth. It was kind of came off as a beautiful brute. It was gorgeous and it was tough. Now, how do you look at that as your first solo design out of the blocks, and has the design style, the philosophy, if you will, evolved for Dye Designs Group since that time, or is it all site specific?
No, okay. That golf course was built for less than $3 million, including the cart paths and the irrigation.
Okay. Yep.
It is on sand, and it's pretty, but it can vary in places. But they're push-up greens. Okay, so no drainage, no nothing. And of course, we built it on a shoestring budget, and it was built as the owner sold lots in the first phase. So we didn't have, he didn't have then the economy turned on him, and he didn't put the maintenance into it. So those greens turned hard as rocks. He never airified them once. So when as you can we had the best bent grass that was available. I think it was T1 at that time. And, they were too hard, too fast. And, people bounce right off. And that's kind of unfair to say that the greens were hard if you'd had, better maintenance practices.
Even normal maintenance practices. Yeah.
So that was kind of one of the toughest issues. Then the other one was the amount of bunkers, though. They came and did a bunker reduction, but they were mostly bunkers that didn't mean anything to help with the maintenance. And today they play, I think the last 3 years, they played the Legends tournament on it. And it's, you'd say it's very, I went to the first tournament, and it's very hard for them to read those greens because they are subtle, and I think we had a big rainstorm. I said, send your caddies out there and watch where the water is going right now, because it was challenging that way because I think they're pretty subtle.
Gotcha. So yeah, that was a really a factor. I mean, of the time, of the budgets you had to work with, and then right into the recession and everything else. And I mean, for a lot of folks that lob criticism and this and that at any golf course, you have to understand the entire backstory, and the climate at the time. And eventually some of those golf courses mature into wonderful golf courses, just with the right tender loving care, so to speak. So with that, and that leads into Al's question, which was my final question, is what are you working on now? And what should we look for in the coming months and years from Dye Designs Group?
Well, the remodel at Wujong House, another course we're under development with in Morocco.
We're very excited about that.
That'll be a fun job.
It's a complete remodel, so that's going to take a lot of attention because it's going to be fast. They have all the World Games coming up, and so they have a lot of attention. You're going to see a lot of focus on upgrading their golf courses, and some projects that were put on hold coming back on with the games that they're World Games that they're having.
Yeah. And then we're working in Boulder, Colorado here with Flatirons Golf Course, just helping them with some small tweaks. Perry did some work with them years ago. They were just doing the 13th hole, some small projects, and then some other ones that are kicking off. Hopefully we'll be able to announce those in the next coming.
Hopefully I finished my golf course in Saudi
Well, this is great news for the frequent flyer rewards programs you guys
I
have. I'm
know.
quite sure.
But yeah, we have a few other projects on the works in South Carolina. They're just preliminary. We're, planning stages. So
Fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, the difference between kind of jumping in your car and driving over to Boulder or going up, to the mountain at Copper Creek versus, we're looking at another full day of flying and a whole night and the rest of it. But that is life in the elite level of architecture.
yeah.
And we wrapped up Inverness Golf Course here in Colorado and Centennial here, right down the street from my house. So this will be the first year, full year of opening. So we're excited to see how that matured. And
Well, congratulations. Best of luck. Thank you guys both so much. You've been very generous with your time today. We really appreciate the
anytime.
conversation.
Yeah, we're happy to be reacquainted, Joe, and it's always fun to talk.
Wonderful.
As our family said.
All right. Great seeing you both and hearing about what's going on in the past and the future.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
You bet. DyeDesignsGroup.com if you want to follow along with any of their work and learn more about them. Cynthia, Matt, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.